you look, you can see it everywhere. Congestion in the U.S. transportation system slows our commutes and jams our city streets. Congestion costs us time, and it costs us money. In fact, Americans lose 3.7 billion hours and 2.3 billion gallons of fuel a year just sitting in traffic jams. Overall, congestion costs America an estimated $200 billion a year and continues to grow. What can we do? We could make greater use of the Marine Highway, America's waterways and coastal waters, the very waterways that carried so much of the nation's early commerce and played a critical part in America's growth. Maritime Administrator Sean T. Connaughton says that in many ways, the Marine Highway Initiative will take us back to the future.
The waterways were our original interstates. And before there were good roads, before there were railroads, most commerce in the United States moved by water. As we saw the development of the interstate highway system, as well as the development of rail, we saw people and industry turn away from the waterways. Now that we're facing increased congestion and ever-increasing costs of infrastructure, what we're trying to do is get people and industry to look at utilizing the waterways more. Every place in the country, practically every metropolitan area is facing congestion. And the ever-increasing costs of infrastructure mean that we've got to look for more innovative ways to actually take trucks and rail cars off the shoreside system and put them onto other systems such as waterways.
America's transportation system is interconnected and intermodal. The containers moving on this stack train will also move by road and by water. The Marine Highway Initiative works toward better connecting all the modes and finding greater use of such things as container on barge, ferry boats, and roll-on, roll-off vessels, leading to greater use of the inland and coastal waterways. Even though the United States already transports 2.5 billion tons of cargo on its waterways each year, there is much more capacity than is being used now. But the complexity of the U.S. transportation system means that there is no one solution that fits all, as Chuck Raymond of Horizon Lines points out.
We really see 3 or 4 different segments when you look at that market. And traditional marketing would say go ahead and segment your markets. And one of those is moving ocean-going containers. From a large congested port to a smaller port, either on the Atlantic or the Gulf or the West Coast. You don't need new facilities for that.
Columbia Coastal Transport has been using the Marine Highway for 17 years. This company occupies a market niche, moving containerized cargo by barge from one U.S. port to another. Columbia Coastal moves containers that come in from overseas to and from Norfolk, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York. The load on this barge included a truck. The operation of a weekly barge service between Norfolk and Baltimore takes 1,800 trucks off Interstates 64 and 95. That's roughly the equivalent to 3 lanes of trucks, bumper to bumper, for 8 miles. And the barge operation uses about 1/8 the fuel of trucking. Does that mean that using the waterways more harms the trucking industry? Bruce Fenimore of Columbia Coastal says no.
In some places it makes sense to use Columbia Coastal because we're moving out of some of the places like New York and Norfolk that have traditionally low trucker pools right now because of just the amount of volume coming through it. We moved to alternate ports like Baltimore and Portland and New York where we're able to take advantage of the trucker pools there to make the final destination. So in that case, we're partners with them. We work hand in hand. In other cases, yeah, we are directly competing for that work, but with the amount of trucks that right now have plenty of east-west movement to go, the north-south movement makes no sense to give to a trucker. You should give it to the barge and let us move it to the alternate port.
Maritime Administrator Sean Connaughton agrees that the trucking industry and rail industry don't necessarily see the Marine Highway as competition.
What they've come to the realization, those in the trucking and the rail industries, is that this will supplement, not replace, truck and rail transportation and become part of the overall transportation logistics system, which most shoreside transportation companies are today.
Virginia International Terminals has made adjustments in its facilities and its labor force to get the maximum efficiency for the barge service. Richard Knapp says that if the barge service were to suddenly disappear, they'd see about a 10% increase in truck traffic. While he does see the possibility for more waterborne transportation, there is no easy formula to figure out how much.
Transportation decisions are made on service and price. Take that a bit further. I think people trying to understand this business need to know that freight needs to move quickly, and the faster it moves, the more money is being made for the transportation logistics companies involved in it. And it also moves on price. Some delays can be encountered in the service if the price is substantially less than the alternative mode.
624 million tons of cargo already move on the inland waterways of the United States each year. One reason is that the inland waterways are fuel efficient. For example, according to the Tennessee Valley Authority, 1 gallon of fuel moves a ton of cargo 70 miles by truck, or 420 miles by rail, or 575 miles by barge. Almost all the cargo that moves on the inland waterways is bulk cargo, grain, gravel, petroleum products, but Osprey Line uses those same waterways to move containerized cargo. Their boast is that they can carry anything that can go into a container. Osprey moves its cargo between Houston and New Orleans, up the Mississippi and beyond to Chicago, and all around the Gulf of Mexico. The company prides itself on speedy operations and the cooperation of its partners. This container move took less than a minute, from the time the spreader locked onto the container until the truck and chassis pulled away. Christian O'Neill of Osprey sees plenty of room for expansion, especially since more shippers are turning to the water.
There's a lot of shippers who are frustrated right now, and they're frustrated with the current infrastructure pressures and at times the lack of service by other modes. So we definitely offer an opportunity for those shippers to have new capacity and an opportunity to move their cargo in an alternative method.